The sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty streets of Verde, Nevada, as Zelda Zimmerman stood at the altar of the small wooden church, her hands trembling beneath the bouquet of wildflowers, knowing that the secret she carried would either save her life or destroy the one man who had offered her a way out of hell itself. 3 weeks earlier, Zelda had been running. Her father's debts had caught up with him in the worst possible way, and when he died suddenly from a heart ailment, those debts had transferred to her. Marcus Thornton, the most ruthless creditor in Carson City, had made his intentions clear. She could pay the $3,000 her father owed, or she could become his property in a different way entirely. The way he had looked at her, with those cold, calculating eyes, had made her skin crawl. She had 24 hours to decide, he had said. 24 hours to come up with an impossible sum, or surrender herself to a fate worse than death. So she ran. She took what little money she had hidden away, climbed onto the stagecoach heading west, and prayed that distance would be enough. She had no plan, no destination, just the desperate hope that somewhere out there she could disappear. Verde, Nevada was barely a town. Nestled near the California border along the Truckee River, it consisted of a handful of buildings, a railroad stop, and more sagebrush than people. It was the kind of place where strangers were noticed immediately, which was exactly why Zelda knew she could not stay long. She had been sitting in the small boarding house, counting her remaining coins and trying to figure out her next move, when she overheard the conversation that would change everything. "I am telling you, Vincent, you need a wife," the older woman had been saying. Zelda later learned her name was Martha Prout, the boarding house owner and the closest thing Verde had to a busybody. "That ranch is not going to run itself, and you cannot keep living like some hermit up there." "I manage just fine," a deep voice had responded. It was a voice that carried the weight of someone who did not waste words. "I do not need complications. What you need is help and company. You are 32 years old, for heaven's sake. Most men your age have wives and children already." Zelda had peered around the corner of the dining room, curiosity getting the better of her. The man called Vincent was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out his worn work shirt. His hair was dark, almost black and longer than was fashionable, touching his collar. He had the weathered look of someone who spent his days under the harsh Nevada sun, but there was something else about him too. A quietness. A stillness that suggested he was more comfortable with horses and open sky than people. "Martha, I appreciate your concern, but I am not interested in finding a wife just to satisfy your sense of propriety." "It is not about propriety," Martha had argued. "It is about survival. What happens when you get hurt out there? Who is going to help you? You nearly died last winter when you got thrown from that Mustang. But I did not die. Only because Tom Franklin happened to ride by and found you. You cannot count on luck like that forever." That was when Zelda made her decision. It was desperate and crazy and probably foolish, but desperate times called for desperate measures. She stepped into the room, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I could not help but overhear." "You need a wife." Both Martha and Vincent had turned to stare at her. Martha's eyes went wide with surprise. Vincent's expression remained unreadable, but she saw his gaze sweep over her, taking in her travel-worn dress, her sun-flushed face, the way her hands twisted nervously together. "Who are you?" he asked. "Zelda Zimmerman. I arrived on yesterday's stage." That much was true. Everything else she was about to say would be a careful construction of half-truths and omissions. "I am looking for a situation. I heard you needed help on your ranch." Martha recovered first. "This is hardly the way to go about finding employment, dear. There are proper channels. I do not need proper channels, Zelda interrupted. I need security. I need a place where I can stay. And if you, she looked directly at Vincent, need a wife, then perhaps we can help each other. This is ridiculous, Vincent said, but he had not walked away. That had to mean something. Is it? Zelda took a step closer. She was taking the biggest gamble of her life, but what choice did she have? You need someone to help run your ranch. I am guessing you need someone to cook and clean and manage a household. I can do all of that. And in return, I get a home and protection. It is a business arrangement. Marriage is not a business arrangement, Martha sputtered. Sometimes it is exactly that, Zelda countered. Plenty of people marry for practical reasons. Love is a luxury that not everyone can afford. Vincent studied her for a long moment. His eyes were an unusual color, she noticed. Gray-green, like the sagebrush that covered the hills. Why? He finally asked. Why would a young woman propose marriage to a complete stranger? She had prepared for this question during her sleepless night. Because I have nowhere else to go. My father died recently. He left debts. I have no other family, no prospects. I can stay here and hope to find work as a seamstress or a laundress and barely scrape by, or I can take a chance on something that might actually give me a future. It was not quite a lie. Her father had died. He had left debts. She just left out the part about Marcus Thornton and the men he had surely sent after her by now. You could be a criminal, Vincent pointed out. You could be running from something. I could be, Zelda agreed. But I am not. I am just a woman trying to survive. And you, she met his eyes steadily, you look like a man who understands what it means to want to be left alone, to want a simple life without complications. I can give you that. No expectations beyond the practical, no demands beyond what we agree on. Martha was shaking her head. Vincent, you cannot seriously be considering this. But Zelda could see that he was. There was something in his expression, a flicker of consideration. Maybe it was the straightforward way she had presented it. Maybe it was the fact that she was not making romantic declarations or false promises. Maybe he was just tired of being alone. Whatever the reason, he did not immediately refuse. I need time to think about this, he said finally. I understand. But I should tell you that I cannot stay in town long. I have limited funds. Also true in its way, give me until tomorrow morning. Meet me here at dawn. I will give you my answer then. Zelda had agreed, even though every instinct screamed at her that she did not have that kind of time. But pushing too hard would only make him suspicious. So she had spent another sleepless night in her small rented room, jumping at every sound, convinced that Thornton's men would burst through the door at any moment. When dawn came, she was already dressed and waiting in the boarding house's small dining room. Vincent arrived as the first light touched the eastern mountains. He looked like he had not slept either. I have conditions, he said without preamble. Relief flooded through her. Conditions meant he was saying yes. All right. This is a business arrangement, like you said. You keep house, help with the ranch work when needed. In return, you get a home, food, protection, my name for whatever that is worth. That sounds fair. I am not an easy man to live with. I am used to being alone. I do not talk much. I do not expect that to change. I am not asking you to change. He studied her again with those penetrating eyes. There is one more thing. Separate bedrooms. This is a marriage in name only unless both of us decide otherwise. I will not force anything, and I do not expect you to either. We are partners, nothing more. Zelda felt a weight lift from her chest. She had been worried about exactly this. That is more than agreeable. Then I suppose we should find someone to marry us. That quickly. You said you needed to leave town. If we are doing this, there is no point in waiting. I have supplies to pick up anyway. We can take care of it in Carson City. Be back to the ranch by tomorrow night. Carson City. where Marcus Thornton lived, where his men would be looking for her. But she could not refuse without explaining why, and she definitely could not tell Vincent the truth. Not now, maybe not ever. All right, she said, hoping her fear did not show on her face. They took Vincent's wagon to Carson City, a journey of about an hour. Zelda spent the entire time scanning the streets, her body tense, ready to bolt at the first sign of Thornton or his hired thugs. Vincent seemed to notice her nervousness but attributed it to the situation. Having second thoughts, he asked as they rolled into town. No, just nervous, I suppose. This is not exactly how I imagined my wedding day would go. How did you imagine it? She glanced at him, surprised by the question. It was the most personal thing he had asked her. I suppose I thought there would be more time, more certainty. Someone I loved. You still could have that. We can call this off right now. But she could not. Even if she wanted to, she could not. So she shook her head. No, I am certain this is what I want. The ceremony was brief and perfunctory. They found a judge willing to perform the marriage, signed the necessary papers, and it was done. Zelda Zimmerman became Zelda Ortega in less than 15 minutes. Vincent's last name rolled off her tongue strangely. She was someone else now. Someone Marcus Thornton could not easily find. As they left the courthouse, Zelda caught sight of a familiar figure across the street. Her blood turned to ice. It was Raymond, one of Thornton's men. He had not seen her yet, but he was headed in their direction. We need to go, she said urgently, grabbing Vincent's arm. He frowned. I still need to pick up supplies. Please. Can we come back another time? I am not feeling well. It was not entirely a lie. She felt like she might be sick. Vincent studied her face, saw whatever he saw there, and nodded. All right. Come on. They made it back to the wagon and out of town without incident, but Zelda could not shake the feeling that she had just narrowly escaped disaster. Raymond had been right there. If he had turned his head, if they had been 30 seconds slower, he would have seen her. And then what? Would Vincent have protected her if he knew the truth? Or would he have handed her over, angry at being deceived? The ride to the ranch was quiet. Vincent seemed content with silence, which suited Zelda fine. She was too busy trying to calm her racing heart and figure out what to do next. She had bought herself time, but for how long? How long before Thornton's men expanded their search? How long before someone in Verde mentioned the stranger who had married Vincent Ortega so suddenly? The ranch, when they finally arrived, was not what she expected. She had pictured something small and struggling, which would explain why Vincent needed help. Instead, she found a well-maintained property nestled in a valley with good water and grazing land. The house was solid, built of wood and stone, larger than necessary for one person. There was a barn, a corral with several horses and various outbuildings. This is beautiful, she said, and meant it. It is home, Vincent replied simply. He pulled the wagon up to the house and climbed down, then offered her his hand. She took it, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. Come on, I will show you around. The house was sparsely furnished but clean. The main room served as both kitchen and living space, with a large stone fireplace dominating one wall. There were 2 bedrooms, one on either side of the main room, and a small washroom that had been added on to the back of the house. That is your room, Vincent said, pointing to the bedroom on the left. Mine is there. You can arrange things however you like. I am not particular about housekeeping. What about cooking? What do you usually eat? Whatever is easy. Beans, salt pork, bread when I bother to make it. Zelda nodded. I can do better than that. I am sure you can, but do not feel like you have to impress me. Simple is fine. She explored her new room while Vincent unloaded the wagon. It was plain but adequate, with a bed, a dresser, and a small window that looked out toward the mountains. Someone had lived here before, she realized. The house was too well built, too thoughtfully designed for a bachelor. She wondered who it had been but did not ask. Vincent clearly valued his privacy, and she was in no position to pry. That first night, she made a simple supper of fried potatoes and bacon with canned beans. They ate in near silence, both of them acutely aware of the strangeness of the situation. Here they were, married but strangers, sitting across from each other at a rough-hewn table, trying to pretend this was normal. "Tell me about the ranch," Zelda finally said, unable to bear the quiet any longer. "What do you raise?" "Horses, mostly." "I catch and break wild mustangs, train them, sell them. Some cattle, but horses are what I know." "Is it profitable?" "Enough. I am not rich, but I do not owe anyone anything. The land is paid for. I make enough to live on and put some aside." "You do all the work yourself?" "Most of it. Sometimes I hire help for roundup or if I am working with a particularly difficult horse. But generally, yes, I manage on my own." "Well, now you have help," Zelda said. "I meant what I said. I can work. I am not afraid of hard labor." Vincent gave her a long look, and for the first time she saw something that might have been approval. "We will see. Ranch work is not the same as keeping house." "Then teach me." Over the following days, that was exactly what he did. Vincent was not a patient teacher in the conventional sense. He did not explain things multiple times or offer encouragement. Instead, he showed her something once, expected her to remember it, and corrected her when she got it wrong. Surprisingly, Zelda found she appreciated his approach. There was no condescension in it, no assumption that she was weak or incapable simply because she was a woman. She learned to feed the horses, muck out stalls, mend fences, and a dozen other tasks. Her hands, which had been soft from her previous life as a shopkeeper's daughter, quickly developed blisters and then calluses. Her back ached from the unaccustomed labor. But she also felt herself growing stronger, more confident. There was something deeply satisfying about physical work, about going to bed exhausted and waking up to do it all again. Vincent, for his part, seemed surprised by her determination. She caught him watching her sometimes when he thought she was not paying attention, his expression thoughtful. They fell into an easy routine. She would wake early, make breakfast, do the household chores, then join him for whatever ranch work needed doing. Evenings were spent in quiet companionship, her mending clothes or reading one of the few books in the house while he worked on tack or sharpened tools. It was a strange marriage, both intimate and distant at the same time. They shared space, shared work, shared meals, but there was a careful boundary between them that neither crossed. They were business partners just as they had agreed, nothing more. 3 weeks into their arrangement, everything changed. Zelda had ridden into Verdi to pick up mail and a few supplies. It was the first time she had been back to town since the wedding, and she had been nervous about it, but Vincent had assured her it was safe. Verdi was small enough that everyone knew everyone else's business. If strangers came asking questions, word would get back to them quickly. She was just leaving the general store when she saw them. 2 men, clearly not locals, asking questions. Her heart leaped into her throat. She ducked back inside, peering through the window as one of the men showed something to the shopkeeper. She could not see what it was from this distance, but she could guess. A photograph, maybe, or a description. They were looking for her. Zelda forced herself to breathe. She needed to get back to the ranch, warn Vincent, figure out what to do. But she could not just walk out there now. They would see her. So she waited, pretending to browse the store's limited selection until the men moved on down the street. The ride back to the ranch was the longest of her life. Every shadow looked like a pursuer. Every sound made her jump. By the time she reached the house, she was nearly frantic with fear. Vincent was in the corral working with a young mare. He looked up as she galloped in, immediately sensing something was wrong. He looped the training rope over the fence post and strode over to her. What happened? There were men, in town, asking questions. She dismounted quickly, her legs shaky. "Vincent, I need to tell you something. I should have told you before, but I was afraid you would not help me if you knew." His expression hardened. "Tell me." So she did. The whole story came pouring out. Her father's death, Marcus Thornton, the debts, the threats, her desperate flight. She told him everything, her words tumbling over each other in her haste to get them out. "I am sorry," she finished. "I know I deceived you. I know you have every right to be angry. But I was desperate, and I thought if I could just disappear, if I could become someone else, he would give up looking for me." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. His face gave nothing away, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his mouth. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "You put us both at risk. I know. I am so sorry. If these men are dangerous, if they are working for someone as ruthless as you say, they will not just give up. They will keep looking. I know that too. I will leave. Tonight. I will disappear again, and you can tell anyone who asks that I ran away that you do not know where I went. You can annul the marriage. You will be free of me and my problems. And where will you go? I do not know. California, maybe. Somewhere I can lose myself. With what money, what resources? You would be running blind just like before, except now they know you are out here. They will be watching the stage stops, the train stations. You would not make it a day." He was right, and they both knew it. Zelda felt despair wash over her. She had been so stupid, so foolish to think she could escape. All she had done was delay the inevitable and drag Vincent into her mess. "Then what do I do?" she asked, her voice breaking. Vincent looked at her for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. She saw the moment he made his decision. "You stay. You are my wife now, legally. That means something. If these men come here, we face them together." "Vincent, you do not have to do that. This is not your problem. You made it my problem when you married me." But his tone was not unkind. "Besides, I do not take well to bullies. This Thornton sounds like the worst kind. If he thinks he can intimidate you into surrendering your freedom, he is going to learn otherwise. He is dangerous. So am I when I need to be." There was something in the way he said it, a quiet certainty that made her believe him. Vincent Ortega might be a man of few words, might prefer solitude and simple living, but he was not weak. She had seen his strength in how he worked, the way he commanded respect from even the most stubborn horses. There was steel beneath that quiet exterior. "Thank you," she said softly. He nodded once, then turned his attention back to practical matters. "We need information. You said your father owed $3,000. Yes. And Thornton wants it from you, even though legally, debts do not typically transfer to children unless they co-sign. I do not think Marcus Thornton cares much about legality. Probably not. But it gives us leverage if we need it. You did not sign anything, correct?" "No. My father handled all his business affairs himself." "Good. That is something. Now these men in town, did they see you?" "I do not think so. I hid in the store until they moved on." "Describe them to me." She did, in as much detail as she could remember. Vincent listened carefully, his eyes distant as he processed the information. "All right. Here is what we are going to do. We stay alert, stay prepared. You do not go into town alone anymore. If I cannot go with you, you do not go at all. We make sure someone always knows where we are. And we wait." "Wait for what?" "For them to make their move. If they are looking for you, they will find you eventually. Better it happens here, on our ground, where we can control the situation." It was not the reassurance she had been hoping for, but it was a plan. And having a plan was better than the helpless fear she had been feeling. That night as they sat at dinner, Vincent asked her more questions about her life before. Not about Thornton or the debts, but about her. What her childhood had been like. What her parents were like. What she enjoyed doing. It was the most personal conversation they had had since their wedding, and Zelda found herself opening up in ways she had not expected. "My mother died when I was 10, she told him. After that, it was just me and my father. He ran a dry goods store in Carson City. It was not much, but it was enough. Or it was, until he started gambling. Did you know about the debts before he died? I knew he owed money. I did not realize how much until the creditors started showing up. Marcus Thornton was not the only one, just the worst. The others were satisfied to take what we had. The store, our belongings, everything of value. But Thornton wanted more. He said my father had borrowed from him personally, with the understanding that it would be repaid with interest. When I could not produce the money, he said there were other ways I could settle the debt. He wanted you. Yes, he made that very clear. Vincent's jaw tightened. You did the right thing, running. Men like that do not deserve what they demand. I just wish I had not pulled you into it. You gave me a choice. I made it. We are in this together now. Those words stayed with Zelda as the days passed. Together. It was such a simple word, but it meant everything. For the first time since her father died, she did not feel alone. Vincent might be taciturn and reserved, but he was reliable. When he said he would protect her, she believed him. A week went by with no sign of Thornton's men. Then another. Zelda started to hope that maybe they had given up, moved on to easier targets, but Vincent warned her against complacency. They are still looking, he said. They are just being careful, asking questions, gathering information. It takes time. He was right. One evening, as they were finishing dinner, they heard horses approaching. Vincent immediately stood, his hand going to the rifle he now kept near the door. Stay inside, he told Zelda, but she followed him to the door, peeking out to see who it was. 2 men on horseback were riding up to the house. She recognized one of them immediately. Raymond, Thornton's man from Carson City. The other was unfamiliar, but he had the same hard look about him. Vincent stepped out onto the porch, the rifle held casually but ready. Evening. What can I do for you gentlemen? Raymond touched his hat brim in a mockery of politeness. Evening. We are looking for someone. A young woman, about 23 years old, dark hair, goes by the name Zelda Zimmerman. We heard she might have come through Verdi. And why are you looking for her? That is private business. If you are on my property asking questions, it is my business too. The second man spoke up. We do not want trouble, friend, just looking for information. Have you seen anyone matching that description? No, Vincent said flatly. Now I suggest you move along. You are trespassing. Raymond's eyes narrowed. You sure about that? Because we heard you got married recently, to a woman no one around here had seen before. That strikes us as mighty convenient timing. My personal life is not your concern. It is if you are harboring someone who owes a debt to our employer. I do not know anything about any debts. My wife is from California originally, came here looking for a fresh start. That is all there is to it. It was a lie smoothly told. Zelda watched from behind the door, her heart pounding. Would they believe it? Raymond studied Vincent for a long moment. Mind if we talk to your wife, just to clear things up? I do mind, actually. She is not feeling well. And you still have not told me who sent you or what right you have to be asking these questions. Like I said, that is private business. Then we are done here. Vincent raised the rifle slightly, not pointing it directly at them but making his meaning clear. You can leave now, or I can report you to the sheriff for trespassing and harassment. Your choice. The tension stretched thin. Zelda held her breath, waiting to see if they would escalate the situation. But after a moment, Raymond shrugged. No need for trouble. We will be going. But if you are lying to us, if you are hiding someone you should not be hiding, that is going to come back on you. Remember that. I will keep it in mind. Now get off my property." The two men turned their horses and rode off, but slowly, taking their time. It was a show of defiance, a way of saying they were not afraid. Vincent watched until they were out of sight, then lowered the rifle and came back inside. "That was close," Zelda said. Her hands were shaking. "They do not know for sure it is you. If they did, they would have pushed harder. But they are suspicious. What do we do now? We be ready, because they will be back, probably with more men next time." That night, neither of them slept much. Zelda lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to every sound. She heard Vincent moving around in his room, heard him get up several times to check the windows. They were both waiting for something to happen. It came 2 nights later. Zelda woke to the smell of smoke. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming, but then she heard Vincent shouting her name. She stumbled out of bed, opening her door to find the main room filling with smoke. Flames were licking up one wall, spreading quickly. "The barn is on fire too," Vincent said, his face grim. This was deliberate. They set both buildings at the same time. "Oh God, the horses." "I will get the horses. You need to get out of here, get to safety." "I am not leaving you." "Zelda, no. We are in this together, remember? Tell me what to do." There was no time to argue. Vincent grabbed buckets and they ran outside. The barn was fully engulfed, flames shooting into the night sky. The terrified screams of the horses inside tore at Zelda's heart. Vincent did not hesitate. He ran straight into the inferno. Zelda started hauling water from the well, throwing it on the house fire. It felt useless, like trying to hold back the ocean with her hands, but she kept at it. Smoke stung her eyes and filled her lungs. Heat pressed against her like a physical force. But she could hear the horses now, thundering out of the barn as Vincent drove them to safety. He emerged moments later, his clothes scorched, his face black with soot. Together they fought the house fire, and slowly, impossibly, they brought it under control. The barn was a total loss, but the house could be saved, though one wall was badly damaged. As dawn broke, they stood together surveying the destruction, exhausted and filthy. The horses were safe in the corral, traumatized but unharmed. The barn was nothing but smoldering ruins. "They tried to burn us out," Vincent said quietly, "to scare you into running or kill us in the fire. I am so sorry. This is all my fault." He turned to her, his expression fierce. "This is not your fault. This is on them, on Thornton and his men. And I swear to you, Zelda, they are not going to win. We are going to figure this out." Something shifted between them in that moment. It was not just about protection anymore, not just about a business arrangement. Vincent's eyes held something deeper, something that made Zelda's breath catch. He reached out, gently touching her soot-stained cheek. "You are bleeding," he said softly. She had not even noticed. There was a cut on her forehead, probably from flying debris. Vincent went to get clean water and cloth to tend to it. His hands were gentle as he cleaned the wound, his face close to hers. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for believing me, for protecting me, for not giving up on me." "I am not going to give up on you," he said. "Not now. Not ever." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Zelda felt something warm unfold in her chest, something she had not expected to feel. She had married Vincent out of desperation, sought safety in a business arrangement. But somewhere along the way, without her even realizing it, her feelings had changed. She cared about him, more than cared about him. The realization terrified her. Over the next few days, they worked to clean up the damage and make temporary repairs. Neighbors came to help, having seen the smoke and heard what happened. Word spread quickly about the fire, and with it, speculation about who might have set it. The sheriff came out from Reno to investigate, but without proof, there was little he could do. "Those men who came asking about your wife," the sheriff said to Vincent. "You think they might have done this? I cannot prove it, but yes, I think they did." "Based on what?" "A hunch. Based on the fact that they threatened me 2 days before my barn burned down." The sheriff sighed. "Look, I understand your frustration, but I need evidence. Without that, my hands are tied. All I can tell you is to be careful and report anything suspicious." After he left, Vincent turned to Zelda. "We need to end this. We need to confront Thornton directly, settle this debt once and for all." "How?" "We do not have $3,000. "No, but we have leverage. You are legally my wife now. Any debt your father owed died with him unless you co-signed, which you did not. Thornton is trying to intimidate you into paying something you do not legally owe. If we confront him with that, along with witnesses and the sheriff, we might be able to force him to back down. Or he might just have us killed. Not if we do it publicly. Not if we make sure enough people know what is happening that he cannot make us disappear quietly." It was risky, but what choice did they have? They could not live like this, always waiting for the next attack. So they made a plan. They would go to Carson City, to the sheriff there, and file a formal complaint against Thornton for harassment and attempted arson. They would bring documentation proving that Zelda had not co-signed any loans. They would force the issue into the open where Thornton could not hide behind his hired thugs. The day before they were set to leave, Martha Prout came by with news. She looked worried, wringing her hands as she stood in the doorway. "Vincent, Zelda, I heard something in town today. Those men, the ones who were asking about Zelda, they have been talking. They have been telling people that Zelda is a thief, that she stole from their employer and ran off. They are trying to turn public opinion against you." Zelda felt sick. "That is not true. I never stole anything." "I know, dear, and most folks do not believe them, but some do, and that is going to make things harder for you." Vincent's expression was grim. "Thank you for telling us, Martha. We will handle it." After she left, Zelda sank into a chair. "This keeps getting worse. He is not just trying to intimidate me anymore. He is trying to destroy my reputation, make it impossible for me to have any kind of life. Then we fight back harder." Vincent knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. "Listen to me. I know this is frightening. I know it seems overwhelming, but you are not alone. We will go to Carson City. We will face this head-on, and we will win because we have the truth on our side. What if the truth is not enough? Then we will make it enough." His confidence bolstered her. That night, as she tried to sleep, Zelda thought about everything that had happened since she arrived in Verde. She had come here running, desperate, willing to enter into a loveless marriage just to survive. But what she found was so much more than safety. She found a partner, someone who stood by her even when things got dangerous. Someone who protected her not out of obligation but because he chose to. She found Vincent. And somewhere along the way, that business arrangement had become something else entirely. She loved him. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. She loved his quiet strength, his integrity, the way he treated her as an equal. She loved the little things too. The way he drank his coffee in the morning, strong and black. The way he talked to the horses, patient and calm. The way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she was not paying attention, as if he was trying to figure out a particularly complicated puzzle. But did he feel the same way? Their marriage was supposed to be practical, nothing more. He had made that clear from the beginning. Even now, after everything they had been through, they still maintained those careful boundaries. Separate bedrooms. No physical intimacy beyond the occasional accidental touch. She wanted more, she realized. She wanted a real marriage, but she had no idea if Vincent felt the same. The next morning, they set out for Carson City. The journey was tense, both of them watching for signs of trouble. They made it to town without incident, but Zelda could not shake the feeling that they were being watched. The sheriff's office in Carson City was more substantial than the one in Reno. Sheriff Davies was an older man with a weathered face and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He listened carefully as Vincent and Zelda explained the situation, occasionally asking questions but mostly just letting them talk. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair and studied them both. Marcus Thornton is a powerful man in this town. He has money and influence. Taking him on is not going to be easy. We know that, Vincent said, but we cannot live under constant threat. This needs to end. You said your father borrowed $3,000 from Thornton, Davies asked Zelda. That is what Thornton claims. I never saw any paperwork, never signed anything. After my father died, Thornton showed up demanding payment, and when you could not pay, he suggested alternative arrangements. Yes, Davies grimaced. That sounds like Thornton. He has a reputation for that sort of thing. Unfortunately, he is also very careful. He covers his tracks, makes sure there are no witnesses, no evidence that could be used against him. So you are saying you cannot help us, Vincent said flatly. I am saying it is complicated, but I believe you, and I will do what I can. Let me talk to Thornton, get his side of things. Maybe we can resolve this without it escalating further. It was not the decisive action they had hoped for, but it was something. They left the sheriff's office and walked through town, hyper-aware of everyone around them. Zelda jumped every time someone looked at her, convinced she was about to be recognized. They were heading back to where they had left the wagon when a voice called out behind them. Zelda Zimmerman. She froze. That voice. She knew that voice. Slowly, she turned around. Marcus Thornton stood there, impeccably dressed as always, flanked by two of his men. He was smiling, but it did not reach his eyes. Or should I say Mrs. Ortega now? He looked at Vincent. You must be the husband. I have to say, I admire your resourcefulness, Zelda. Marrying a stranger to avoid your obligations, that takes a certain amount of nerve. She does not have any obligations to you, Vincent said coldly. She never co-signed any loan. Whatever debt you claim her father owed died with him. Is that what she told you? How convenient. Thornton pulled a folded paper from his jacket. This is a promissory note, signed by Abraham Zimmerman, stating that he borrowed $3,000 from me with the agreement that if he could not repay it, his daughter would work off the debt in my establishment. Let me see that, Vincent demanded. Thornton handed it over. Vincent studied it carefully, then looked at Zelda. Did you know about this? No, I never saw that before in my life. Of course she's going to say that, Thornton said smoothly. But the signature is legitimate. I had it verified. Your wife is legally obligated to honor this agreement. Even if that signature is real, which I doubt, such an agreement is not legally binding. You cannot sell a person into servitude to pay off a debt. That is illegal. Perhaps, but that would have to be decided by a court. And courts take time. Meanwhile, Zelda, you have destroyed my property by running away. You have cost me money and reputation. I want compensation. You are not getting anything from her, Vincent said. Thornton's smile widened. We will see about that. I am a patient man. And I have a lot of resources at my disposal. You, on the other hand, are just a rancher barely scraping by. How long do you think you can protect her? How long before an accident happens? Another fire, perhaps, or maybe something happens to your remaining livestock. These things have a way of adding up. It was a threat, barely veiled. Vincent took a step forward, his fists clenched. You listen to me, Zelda grabbed his arm. Vincent, do not. That is what he wants. He wants you to start something so his men can finish it. She was right, and Vincent knew it. He forced himself to step back, but his eyes never left Thornton's face. This is not over, he said. No, Thornton agreed. It is certainly not. I will give you 1 week to reconsider, Either Zelda comes to work for me as agreed or I take my compensation some other way. Your choice." He turned and walked away, his men following. Zelda felt like she could not breathe. That promissory note, where had it come from? Had her father really signed such a thing? She could not believe it, but the paper had looked authentic. "You think it is real?" she asked Vincent quietly. "I do not know. But even if it is, it does not matter. No court would uphold an agreement to turn over a person as collateral. Thornton is trying to intimidate you. It is working." They went back to the sheriff's office and told him about the encounter. Davies examined the promissory note carefully, his expression troubled. "This is a problem," he admitted. "Even if such an agreement is not enforceable, which I agree it is not, Thornton can still use it to tie you up in court for months, maybe years. And in the meantime, he can make your life hell." "So what do we do?" Zelda asked desperately. "Prove it is a forgery. If we can show that the signature is not genuine or that the document was created after your father's death, then we can charge Thornton with fraud. But that will take time and an expert." "Time we might not have," Vincent said. "He gave us 1 week." Davies nodded grimly. "Then I suggest you watch your backs. I will do what I can, but Thornton is smart. He knows how to work within the system." They left Carson City with more questions than answers. The ride back to Verde was silent, both of them lost in their own thoughts. Zelda felt despair settling over her like a heavy blanket. No matter what they did, Thornton seemed to be one step ahead. How could they fight someone with so much power and so few scruples? When they reached the ranch, Vincent helped her down from the wagon. But instead of immediately going about the evening chores, he stood there, his hands still on her waist, looking at her. "Zelda, I need to ask you something." "All right. Why did you really marry me?" "And do not tell me it was just for protection. There is more to it than that, is there not?" She hesitated. This was the moment of truth. She could lie, maintain the fiction of their business arrangement, or she could be honest and risk everything. "You are right," she said softly. "There is more to it. When I first proposed this arrangement, it was desperation. I was terrified and running, and I would have done anything to survive. But that is not why I am still here. I stay because somewhere along the way, this stopped being just about survival. You gave me something I did not even know I needed. You gave me hope. You gave me a reason to fight instead of just run. And you gave me something else too." "What?" She took a breath. "A reason to believe in love again. I know that was not part of our agreement. I know you wanted a business arrangement, nothing more, but I have to be honest with you. I love you, Vincent, and I understand if that changes things, if it makes you uncomfortable. But I could not lie about it anymore." He stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then slowly, a smile spread across his face. It transformed him, made him look younger, lighter. "You think I did not know that?" he said. "Zelda, I have known for weeks. I knew from the way you look at me when you think I am not paying attention. The way you always make sure there is fresh coffee when I wake up. The way you stood by me during the fire instead of running like any sensible person would have done. Then, why did not you say anything? Because I was afraid. Afraid that you were just grateful, that you felt obligated because I was protecting you. I did not want your gratitude. I wanted—" He stopped, shook his head. "I wanted what I thought I could not have." "What is that? Your heart freely given. Not because you owe me, but because you choose me." "I do choose you," Zelda said, tears streaming down her face. "I choose you every single day." He kissed her then, pulling her close. It was their first kiss, and it was perfect. Gentle but passionate, tender but hungry. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I love you too," Vincent said. "I think I started falling for you the day you proposed to me in Martha's boarding house. You were so fierce, so determined. I had never met anyone like you. So what does this mean for us?" It means we stop pretending. No more separate bedrooms unless you want them. No more business arrangement. We are married, Zelda, truly married, for better or worse." She laughed through her tears. "We definitely got the worst part first. Then it can only get better from here." That night, everything changed. They shared a bed for the first time, and it was awkward and wonderful and perfect all at once. They talked for hours, telling each other stories about their pasts, their hopes for the future. Vincent told her about the family who had lived in the house before him, his parents and younger sister. They had all died in a terrible winter storm 5 years ago, leaving him alone. "That is why I built those walls," he admitted. "It hurt too much to lose them. I thought if I kept everyone at a distance, I would never have to feel that pain again." "But you cannot live without love," Zelda said softly. "It is what makes us human." "I know that now. You taught me that. In the days that followed, they grew even closer." The physical intimacy brought an emotional depth to their relationship that had not been there before. They worked together during the day, but now there was a new ease between them, a comfort. They could communicate with just a look, a touch. They were truly partners in every sense of the word. But the threat of Marcus Thornton still hung over them. The week he had given them was almost up, and they had heard nothing from the sheriff about the promissory note. Vincent decided they needed to take matters into their own hands. "I have an idea," he said one evening. "But you are not going to like it. Tell me. We use you as bait. We let Thornton think you are willing to negotiate, set up a meeting, but we make sure it is somewhere public with witnesses. We record everything he says, get him to admit that he is trying to extort you. Then we take that evidence to the sheriff." Zelda felt a chill run down her spine. "That is dangerous, I know, but it might be our only chance to end this. If we can get him to incriminate himself, we can finally be free of him." She did not like it, but she could not think of a better plan. So they worked out the details. Zelda would send a message to Thornton saying she wanted to talk, that she might be willing to reach a compromise. They would meet in a public place, the hotel restaurant in Carson City, at a time when it would be busy. Vincent would be nearby, ready to intervene if things went wrong. And Tom Franklin, a rancher from a neighboring property who owed Vincent a favor, would also be there as backup. The message was sent, and Thornton's reply came quickly. He agreed to the meeting, suggesting a time 2 days hence. It was happening. Those 2 days were the longest of Zelda's life. She was terrified, but she tried not to show it. Vincent was a rock, calm and steady, but she could see the worry in his eyes. He made her practice what she would say, how she would handle different scenarios. He wanted her prepared for anything. The day of the meeting arrived. They rode into Carson City in tense silence. Vincent had insisted Zelda wear her wedding ring prominently, a silent reminder that she was his wife, under his protection. They arrived early and took their positions. Vincent and Tom sat at a table across the restaurant where they could see everything, but would not be obviously associated with Zelda. Zelda chose a table near the window, in full view of everyone. Thornton arrived exactly on time, alone this time. He sat down across from her with that same cold smile. "I am pleased you decided to be reasonable," he said. "I did not say I was going to work for you," Zelda replied, keeping her voice steady. "I said I wanted to talk. Talk about what exactly? About ending this. You want money. I do not have $3,000, but maybe we can work out some kind of payment plan. Something reasonable. And why would I agree to that when I can simply take what I am owed? Because you know as well as I do that your promissory note would not hold up in court. You are trying to enforce an illegal contract. If I take this to a judge, you will lose." Thornton leaned back, studying her. "Perhaps, but as I said before, courts take time, and accidents can happen to you, to your husband, to anyone you care about. Is that a threat? It is a statement of fact. You have something I want. I will get it one way or another. Even if it means breaking the law, even if it means hurting innocent people. What I do is not your concern. Your concern is fulfilling your father's obligation to me. An obligation I never agreed to. Your father agreed to it. That is enough. Zelda forced herself to lean forward to look him in the eye. Let us be honest here. This is not about money. You have plenty of money. This is about power, about controlling people. You are angry that I escaped, that I found a way out of your trap. This whole thing is just you trying to punish me for defying you. Something flickered in Thornton's eyes. Anger, maybe, or satisfaction that she had finally figured it out. You are smarter than your father. I will give you that. He was a weak man, easily manipulated, but you have spirit. I appreciate that. It will make breaking you so much more satisfying. You are never going to break me, and you are never going to get what you want. We will see about that. He stood up. You have until tomorrow night. After that, I stop being patient, and you will not like what happens next. He walked out, leaving Zelda shaking with rage and fear. Vincent came over immediately, sliding into the seat Thornton had vacated. Did you hear all of that? She asked. Most of it. Tom heard it too, but I do not know if it is enough. He did not directly admit to anything illegal. He threatened me. He talked about accidents happening to people I care about, which a good lawyer could argue was just a figure of speech. We need more. They left the restaurant feeling defeated. The plan had not worked as well as they had hoped. They had Thornton on record making vague threats, but nothing concrete enough to charge him with. That night back at the ranch, they held each other close. Tomorrow was the deadline. Tomorrow, Thornton would make his move, whatever that move might be. They had to be ready. Maybe we should just leave, Zelda said. Start over somewhere else, sell the ranch, take the money, and go somewhere he cannot find us. This is my home, Vincent said. My family built this place. I am not going to let him drive me out. Then what do? We stand our ground. We protect what is ours, and we hope that when he comes, we are strong enough to stop him. The next day passed in agonizing slowness. They went about their chores, but the tension was unbearable. Every sound made them jump. Every shadow looked like a threat. As evening approached, they barricaded themselves in the house, rifles loaded and ready. Night fell. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Maybe he was bluffing, Zelda said hopefully. Maybe, Vincent replied, but he did not sound convinced. They took turns keeping watch through the night. Dawn came, gray and overcast. Still nothing. By mid-morning, they started to relax slightly. Maybe Thornton had given up. Maybe their defiance had convinced him they were not worth the trouble. Then Tom Franklin came riding up fast, his horse lathered with sweat. Vincent, Zelda. You need to come quick. It is Martha. Someone broke into her boarding house last night. She is hurt bad. They raced to town, fear clawing at Zelda's throat. Martha had been kind to them, one of the few people who had stood by them. If Thornton had hurt her to get at them, she would never forgive herself. The boarding house looked fine from the outside, but inside was a different story. Furniture was overturned, windows broken. And Martha was lying on a cot, her face bruised and bandaged. The doctor was with her. "Oh, Martha," Zelda breathed, rushing to her side. Martha opened her eyes. "Zelda, Vincent, I am sorry. I tried to stop them." "Who did this?" Vincent demanded. "Those men who were asking about Zelda before. They came last night, wanted to know where you were. When I would not tell them, they got rough, said this was what happened to people who helped fugitives." "You are not a fugitive," Vincent said to Zelda. "This is Thornton's doing. He is escalating because we refuse to give in." The doctor spoke up. "She will be all right, but she needs rest." Whoever did this, they were sending a message more than trying to kill her. A message. That was exactly what it was. Thornton was showing them that he could hurt the people they cared about whenever he wanted, that no one was safe as long as they continued to defy him. Zelda felt rage building inside her. Martha had not done anything except be kind to a stranger. She did not deserve this. None of the people in Verde deserved to be caught up in this mess. "I have to end this," she said quietly. "I have to stop him." "We will stop him," Vincent corrected. "Together." But how? They had tried everything they could think of, and Thornton kept finding ways around them. He had money, power, and a willingness to do whatever it took to get what he wanted. What did they have against that? The answer came from an unexpected source. Sheriff Davies arrived in Verde that afternoon, looking for them. He had news. "I have been digging into Marcus Thornton's business dealings," he said, "and I found something interesting. That promissory note he showed you, the one supposedly signed by your father, I had an expert look at it. The paper stock was not manufactured until 3 months after your father died. It is a forgery." Zelda felt hope flare in her chest. "You can prove that." "I can. And that is not all. I talked to some of Thornton's other creditors. Turns out he has a pattern of creating fraudulent documents to extort money from people. I have testimony from 3 different people willing to testify against him." "So we can arrest him?" Vincent asked. "I already have. He is in custody in Carson City right now." Once word got out about what I was investigating, more people came forward. Thornton made a lot of enemies over the years. They were just too scared to speak up before. But now that someone has, they are all talking. He's going to prison for a long time. Zelda could hardly believe it. "It is really over. It is really over. You are free, Mrs. Ortega. Both of you are." After Davies left, Zelda and Vincent just stood there holding each other. The relief was overwhelming. They had been living under such constant stress for so long that they had almost forgotten what it felt like to be safe. "What do we do now?" Zelda asked. Vincent smiled. "We live. We build our life together. We do all the things we have been too scared to think about." "Like what?" "Like making this a real home. Like starting a family if you want that. Like being happy." Happiness. It seemed almost foreign after everything they had been through, but as Zelda looked at Vincent, she realized that happiness was exactly what she felt. They had faced the worst and survived. Now they could face everything else together. The next few weeks were busy ones. They repaired the damage to the barn and house, with help from neighbors who were relieved to see Thornton brought to justice. Word spread quickly about what had happened, and instead of being ostracized, Zelda found herself welcomed. People who had been wary before now greeted her warmly. She was one of them now, a member of the community. Martha recovered from her injuries and insisted on hosting a proper wedding reception for Vincent and Zelda. It was a small affair, just the people of Verde and a few nearby ranchers, but it was filled with genuine warmth and celebration. For the first time, Zelda felt like she truly belonged somewhere. A month after Thornton's arrest, Vincent and Zelda were working together to mend a section of fence when she suddenly felt dizzy. She sat down quickly, her head spinning. "Are you all right?" Vincent asked, concerned. "I do not know. I have been feeling strange lately, tired and dizzy, and my stomach has been upset in the mornings." Vincent went very still. "How long has this been going on? A couple of weeks, maybe?" "Zelda, do you think you might be pregnant?" The question hung in the air between them. Pregnant? She had not even considered it, too caught up in everything else, but now that he said it, it made sense. The fatigue, the nausea, the way her body felt different. "I might be," she said slowly. "I do not know for sure." They went to see the doctor in Reno the next day. He confirmed what they suspected. Zelda was pregnant, about 2 months along. She would have a baby sometime in the spring. The news was overwhelming. They had only been truly married, truly together, for a little over a month. Everything had happened so fast. And yet, as Zelda watched Vincent's face light up with joy, she felt her own happiness bubbling up to match his. "We are going to have a baby," she said wonderingly. "We are going to have a baby," Vincent repeated, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her soundly. But the joy was tinged with fear. What if something went wrong? What if she lost the baby? What if there were complications? She tried to push those thoughts away, but they kept creeping back in. Vincent seemed to sense her worry. "Whatever happens, we will face it together." Just like everything else. The winter months passed slowly. Zelda's pregnancy progressed normally, though she was often uncomfortable. Vincent hovered, protective and attentive, driving her crazy with his concern but also making her feel cherished. They spent the long winter evenings making plans, talking about names, preparing for the baby's arrival. As the year turned from 1884 to 1885, Zelda found herself thinking about everything that had happened. A year ago, she had been a shopkeeper's daughter in Carson City, oblivious to the debts her father was accumulating. 6 months ago, she had been running for her life. And now she was here, married to a man she loved, carrying his child, safe and happy on a ranch in Nevada. Life had a strange way of working out. Spring arrived with its usual fanfare of wildflowers and newborn animals. The ranch came alive again after the quiet of winter. And as the days grew longer and warmer, Zelda grew bigger and more uncomfortable. She was ready for the baby to arrive. It happened on a beautiful May morning. Zelda woke to cramping pains and knew immediately that labor had started. Vincent rode to fetch the midwife while Martha came to stay with her. The next several hours were a blur of pain and effort, of Martha's encouraging words and her own determination to bring this baby into the world safely. Finally, as the sun was setting, filling the bedroom with golden light, their son was born. He came into the world squalling, healthy and strong. Vincent, who had been pacing outside, burst into the room at the first cry. "It is a boy," the midwife announced, handing the baby to Zelda. Zelda looked down at her son, at his tiny red face and flailing fists, and felt love unlike anything she had ever experienced. This was her child. Hers and Vincent's. Vincent sat beside her on the bed, his arm around her shoulders, staring at their son with an expression of wonder. "He is perfect." "He is," Zelda agreed. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names endlessly over the winter but never quite settled on one. Now, looking at their son, Vincent said, "Abraham, after your father, he made mistakes, but he was still your father, and without him you would not be here. We would not have this." Tears filled Zelda's eyes. "Abraham Vincent Ortega, I like that." Little Abraham proved to be a good baby, healthy and generally happy. The first few months were exhausting as they adjusted to parenthood, but they managed. Vincent was surprisingly good with the baby, patient and gentle. Zelda loved watching him hold their son, the fierce protectiveness in his expression, the tenderness in his touch. As Abraham grew, so did their family's happiness. The ranch prospered. Vincent's reputation as a horse trainer spread, and he had more business than he could handle. They hired help, a young man named Caleb who was learning the trade. The house that had once seemed too big for just Vincent now felt perfectly sized for their growing family. On Abraham's first birthday, they threw a party. It seemed like everyone in Verde showed up, bringing gifts and well wishes. As Zelda watched her son smear birthday cake all over his face while Vincent laughed, she thought about how far they had come. That night, after the guests had left and Abraham was asleep, Vincent and Zelda sat on the porch watching the stars. It was a warm summer evening, peaceful and quiet. "Do you ever think about that day in Martha's boarding house?" Vincent asked. "When you proposed to me, all the time. I cannot believe how brave or maybe how desperate I was to do something like that. I cannot believe I said yes. I spent years building walls to keep people out. And then you showed up and somehow convinced me to let them down in a matter of minutes. I am glad you did. So am I. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. I love you, Zelda, more than I ever thought it was possible to love someone. I love you too. You saved me, you know. In every way a person can be saved. We saved each other, Vincent corrected. You gave me a reason to stop just existing and start living again. You gave me a family, a purpose beyond just getting through each day. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. Then Zelda said, I have something to tell you. Vincent turned to look at her. What is it? She smiled. I am pregnant again. His eyes went wide. Are you certain? Pretty certain. I have not seen the doctor yet, but I recognize the signs. Vincent let out a whoop of joy that probably woke half the county, then pulled her into his arms. Another baby. That is wonderful. You are happy about it. Of course I am happy about it. Why would not I be? I just wanted to make sure. 2 babies in less than 2 years is a lot. It is going to be chaos, Vincent agreed. And I cannot wait. Their daughter was born the following spring in April of 1886. They named her Victoria Marie after no one in particular. They just liked the name, liked the strength of it. Victoria was a different baby than Abraham had been. Where he had been easy and content, she was fussy and demanding. But she was also beautiful, with dark hair like her father and eyes that promised to be the same unusual gray-green. With 2 young children, life became delightfully hectic. Their days were filled with the ordinary chaos of family life. Diapers and feedings, toddler tantrums and baby cries, laughter and exhaustion. It was everything Zelda had never known she wanted and more. One evening, when Abraham was 3 and Victoria was almost 2, they put the children to bed and collapsed onto the sofa together. Vincent pulled Zelda against his side, and she rested her head on his shoulder. Remember when you told me you were not actually pregnant? Vincent said suddenly. Zelda lifted her head to look at him, confused. What? The night of our wedding. We were lying in your room in separate beds, maintaining all those proper boundaries we had set, and you whispered into the darkness that you needed to tell me something. Zelda's mind flashed back. She did remember. They had been married for all of 6 hours, and she had been lying there consumed with guilt about the secrets she was keeping. She had almost told him about Thornton that night but lost her nerve at the last second. Instead, she had said something else entirely. I said I was not actually pregnant, she recalled, because you had agreed to marry me so quickly, and I was worried you might think that was why, that I was trying to trap you. And I said, then we have time together, Vincent finished. Time to figure out if this arrangement could be something more, time to get to know each other, time to see if what we were feeling was real. I had forgotten about that, Zelda admitted. I never did. It was the moment I first allowed myself to hope that maybe this marriage could be more than just practical, that maybe we could build something real. Zelda smiled. We certainly did that. 2 children, a thriving ranch, a real home. We built a whole life. The best life, Vincent agreed. He pulled her closer, kissed the top of her head. Thank you for being brave enough to walk into that boarding house and make such an outrageous proposal. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being exactly who you are. They sat there together as the fire burned low, listening to the quiet sounds of their sleeping children, wrapped in the contentment of a life well built. Outside, the Nevada wind whispered through the sagebrush, carrying with it the promise of tomorrow and all the tomorrows after that. Years passed in the way that years do when you are happy. Abraham grew tall and strong, with his father's quiet confidence and his mother's determination. Victoria turned out to be just as stubborn as both her parents combined, which made for some interesting challenges but also filled their lives with laughter. They had two more children, another boy they named James and a girl they named Sarah. The house that had once been too big for one lonely man now rang with the sounds of a large and loving family. Vincent's horse training business became known throughout Nevada and into California. People came from far and wide to buy horses he had trained, knowing they would be getting quality animals. The ranch expanded, requiring more help. Caleb stayed on and eventually married a girl from Reno, building his own house on the property. They had children too, who played with the Ortega children, and the ranch became its own small community. Zelda found her own purpose beyond motherhood. She started a small school in Verde, teaching the ranch children and town children alike. It was only a few hours a day, but it filled a need and gave her something that was just hers. She loved teaching, loved watching young minds grasp new concepts, loved being part of shaping the next generation. Martha Prout remained a close friend until her death in 1892, leaving her boarding house to her nephew, but making sure everyone knew that Vincent and Zelda were the ones who had shown her what true courage looked like. Sheriff Davies retired and moved to California, but not before making sure they knew he considered them family. As for Marcus Thornton, he spent 10 years in prison for fraud and extortion. When he was finally released, broken and bitter, he disappeared from Carson City. Zelda heard rumors over the years that he had died penniless in San Francisco, but she never confirmed it and never cared to. He was part of a past she had long since left behind. On their 10th wedding anniversary in 1894, Vincent surprised Zelda with a trip. They left the children with Caleb and his wife and took the train to San Francisco. It was Zelda's first time seeing the ocean, and she stood on the shore with tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by the beauty and vastness of it. "What are you thinking?" Vincent asked, his arm around her waist. "I am thinking about how different my life is from what I imagined. 10 years ago, I thought my future was over. I thought I was running toward nothing, just away from something terrible. I never imagined I could be this happy." "I never imagined I could be happy again," Vincent admitted. "After I lost my family, I thought that part of my life was done, that I would just exist until it was my time to join them. You changed all of that." "We changed each other," Zelda said, echoing the words he had spoken so many years ago. "We saved each other." They spent 3 days in San Francisco, just the two of them, reconnecting in ways that got lost in the daily chaos of raising 4 children and running a ranch. They walked along the waterfront, ate in restaurants, stayed in a fancy hotel, and made love without worrying about little voices calling for them in the night. It was glorious, but they were also eager to get home. As much as they enjoyed their time away, they missed their children, missed their life. When the train pulled into Verde and they saw Abraham, Victoria, James, and Sarah waiting on the platform, their faces lighting up at the sight of their parents, Zelda felt her heart nearly burst with love. This was what she had run toward, even though she had not known it at the time. Not just safety, not just survival, but this. A family. A home. A life filled with love and purpose and meaning. The years continued their steady march. Abraham grew into a fine young man, and eventually took over more of the ranch operations, learning everything his father could teach him about horses and land management. Victoria shocked everyone by announcing at 16 that she wanted to be a doctor, and somehow managed to get herself accepted to medical school in San Francisco, the first woman from Verde to pursue such a profession. James proved to have his father's way with animals and his mother's head for business, while Sarah turned out to be an artist, filling the house with drawings and paintings. Vincent and Zelda grew older together, their hair turning gray, lines deepening around their eyes and mouths. But they still looked at each other the way they had in those early days when everything was new and terrifying and thrilling. That spark, that connection, never faded. On a spring evening in 1904, 20 years after that desperate day when Zelda had walked into Martha's boarding house and proposed marriage to a stranger, Vincent and Zelda sat on their porch watching the sunset. Their grandchildren, Abraham's 3 sons, were playing in the yard, their laughter floating on the evening air. Inside the house, Abraham's wife was preparing dinner while Abraham himself worked on accounts in the study. 20 years, Zelda said softly. Can you believe it? Some days it feels like yesterday. Other days it feels like forever ago, Vincent replied. You ever regret it, saying yes to my crazy proposal? Vincent turned to look at her, and the expression on his face was answer enough even before he spoke. Not for one single second. You gave me everything I thought I had lost. You gave me a reason to live again, to love again. How could I ever regret that? I feel the same way. You saved my life in more ways than one. We built a good life together, Vincent said. A life worth living. The best life, Zelda agreed. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. The same mountains that had witnessed their struggles now bore witness to their triumph. The same land that had nearly seen their destruction had become the foundation of their happiness. The grandchildren's laughter rang out again, and Vincent smiled. You know what the best part is? What? It is not over yet. We still have time. Time to watch these little ones grow up. Time to see what Victoria does with her medical practice. Time to see James and Sarah find their own paths. Time to just be together. Then we have time together, Zelda said, echoing those long-ago words Vincent had spoken on their wedding night. He laughed, recognizing the reference. Yes. We have all the time in the world. And they did. They had decades more together, watching their children build their own families, their own lives. They had the joy of watching their grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. They had the satisfaction of seeing the ranch not just survive but thrive, becoming one of the most respected horse operations in Nevada. But more than any of that, they had each other. Through every trial and triumph, every joy and sorrow, they had each other. The business arrangement that had started with desperation and necessity had become one of the great love stories of their generation, at least in Verdi. People spoke of Vincent and Zelda Ortega with admiration, pointing to them as an example of what marriage could be when built on mutual respect, trust, and love. When Vincent died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 78 in 1928, surrounded by his children and grandchildren, Zelda held his hand and whispered words of love and gratitude. She mourned him deeply, but not with despair. How could she despair when she had been given so much? 44 years of marriage, 6 grandchildren, 14 great-grandchildren, and a lifetime of memories. She lived another 5 years, long enough to see the ranch continue to prosper under Abraham's leadership, long enough to see Victoria become one of the most respected doctors in San Francisco, long enough to know that the life she and Vincent had built would endure long after they were gone. When Zelda passed away in the summer of 1933 at the age of 72, she was laid to rest beside Vincent in the small cemetery outside Verdi. Their graves sit side by side, overlooking the ranch they built together, under the vast Nevada sky they both loved. And if you visit that cemetery today, you can still see their headstones, weathered by time but still standing. On Zelda's stone, beneath her name and dates, There is an inscription that tells their whole story in just a few words. She ran toward hope and found love. On Vincent's stone, the inscription is equally simple. He opened his heart and found home. Together, they told the story of two people who found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances, who built a life and a love that lasted generations. They were proof that sometimes the most desperate decisions lead to the most beautiful outcomes, that sometimes saying yes to a stranger is the bravest thing you can do, and that love, when given time and nurtured with care, can overcome anything. Their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren continued to tell the story of how Zelda and Vincent met, how a terrified young woman made an outrageous proposal to a lonely rancher, and how that single moment of courage changed everything. It became a family legend, passed down through the generations, a reminder that sometimes the greatest risks lead to the greatest rewards. The ranch still stands today, though it is much changed from Vincent's time. But the house, the original house that witnessed their first awkward days as business partners and their eventual transformation into a loving couple, still stands at the heart of the property. And sometimes, on quiet summer evenings when the wind whispers through the sagebrush, you can almost hear the echoes of their laughter, the sound of children playing, the quiet murmur of two people who found each other against all odds and held on tight. That is the legacy of Zelda and Vincent Ortega. Not just the ranch they built or the children they raised, but the love they shared. A love that started with a whispered conversation in the dark, with words about time and possibility. A love that proved time and again that when two people commit to facing life together, there is nothing they cannot overcome. And it all started with a desperate woman, a lonely man, and the simple words, "Then we have time together. Time to fall in love. Time to build a life. Time to create something beautiful out of desperation and fear. Time to prove that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unlikely beginnings." That was their story. That was their gift to the world. And that was how two strangers became soulmates, how a business arrangement became a great love, and how time together became forever.